The Crefter had ruled the void between stars for 3,000 cycles. Their empire stretched across 47 systems, each conquered world a testament to their supremacy. They were apex predators in the truest sense, evolution's masterpiece forged in the crucible of a death world where survival meant being faster, stronger, and more ruthless than anything else that drew breath. Commander Zarnvok stood on the bridge of the warship Crimson Fang, his massive frame silhouetted against the viewport that displayed the third planet of an unremarkable yellow star. His scales gleamed like polished obsidian in the dim red lighting his species preferred, and his 4 eyes tracked every detail of the world below with predatory precision. Another primitive world, his second officer, Krath, growled with barely concealed disappointment. Our scouts report they have barely left their cradle. No faster than light capability, nuclear fission at best, they call themselves humans. Zarnvok's mandibles clicked in what passed for a smile among his kind. 47 conquests, and not one species had offered meaningful resistance. The Crefter were simply too perfect, too refined by millions of years of evolution on a world where weakness meant extinction. Every other species they had encountered had evolved on gentler worlds, their survival instincts dulled by easier climates and less lethal competition. "Begin standard conquest protocol," Zarnvok commanded. "Demonstrate our superiority. They will surrender within 1 rotation of their planet, as all the others have." The Crimson Fang descended through the atmosphere, its hull glowing with re-entry friction. Below, in the city the humans called New York, millions looked up at the sky as the kilometer-long vessel emerged from the clouds like a descending sword. The Crefter had perfected this approach over countless conquests. Make the arrival impossible to ignore. Let them see the vast technological superiority arrayed against them. Watch as hope crumbled into despair. Lieutenant Greg Morrison stood in the emergency command center beneath Manhattan, watching the feeds from every news station simultaneously. The massive alien ship hung over the city like a promise of annihilation. Around him, military personnel moved with controlled urgency, but he could see the fear in their eyes. They had drilled for this scenario, but no amount of preparation could truly ready someone for the moment first contact turned out to be an invasion. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," Sergeant Linda Hayes called out from her station. "Audio and visual. They're broadcasting on every frequency we use." The main screen flickered to life, and Greg found himself staring at something from humanity's darkest nightmares. The creature that appeared was massive, easily 3 meters tall, with 4 glowing eyes set in a reptilian skull armored with natural bone plates. Its scales were black as midnight, and when it opened its mouth to speak, rows of serrated teeth glinted in the red lighting behind it. "I am Commander Zarnvok of the Crefter Empire," the creature's voice rumbled, translated into English by sophisticated software that somehow understood their language perfectly. "Your world now belongs to us. You have 1 rotation of your planet to surrender unconditionally. If you comply, you will be incorporated into our empire as a subject species. Your resources will serve the Crefter, but your people will be spared. If you resist, we will demonstrate why 47 worlds have chosen obedience over extinction." The transmission ended. The command center erupted in controlled chaos. Greg looked at the people around him, saw the fear, but also something else. Something the Crefter probably had not encountered before. Humanity had spent 10,000 years learning to be afraid of each other. They had perfected the art of survival against other humans, the most dangerous predator their planet had ever produced. And humans had one trait the Crefter had not yet discovered. When cornered, humans did not freeze. They bit back. General Patricia Bennett burst into the command center 3 hours later. She was a compact woman in her 50s, with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen 3 wars. She took one look at the tactical displays and began issuing orders with the kind of calm that only came from decades of experience turning bad situations into survivable ones. "Lieutenant Morrison, status report." Greg pulled up the compiled data. "The ship is maintaining position over Manhattan. We've attempted communication, but they're not responding. Every nation with nuclear capability has armed their arsenals and is awaiting your order. Conventional forces are mobilizing, but ma'am, that ship is massive. Our best analysis suggests it could withstand anything we throw at it. Maybe, Bennett said quietly. But humanity did not claw its way to the top of the food chain by giving up when something bigger showed up. Hayes, get me the Secretary of Defense. Morrison, start pulling every file we have on asymmetric warfare. If we cannot match their technology, we will show them what 10,000 years of learning to kill each other has taught us. Aboard the Crimson Fang, Zarnvok reviewed the data his sensors had collected. The planet was indeed primitive, as expected. Their most powerful weapons were crude nuclear devices that would barely scratch his ship's shields. Their military forces were scattered and disorganized, their response time laughably slow. He had seen this pattern 47 times before. What he had not seen was the activity happening in places his sensors could not reach. Deep underground, in command bunkers scattered across every continent, humanity was not preparing to surrender. They were preparing to teach the Crefter a lesson that no other species had managed to deliver. The deadline came and went. No surrender. Instead, the humans broadcast a message of their own. A single sentence delivered by a weathered woman in a military uniform who stood in front of a flag featuring stars and stripes. Come and take it. Zarnvok's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation among his species. In 47 conquests, no species had been this foolish. No species had chosen annihilation over subjugation. He gave the order his crew had been waiting for. Demonstrate our power, target military installations, show them what resistance costs. The Crimson Fang's main cannon powered up, drawing energy from the ship's fusion core. The weapon could level mountains, boil oceans, turn cities into glass. It had been used 47 times before to break the spirit of species that thought they could resist. The beam lanced down from the sky and struck an installation in Nevada. The explosion was visible from space, a mushroom cloud rising into the stratosphere. Zarnvok watched the destruction with satisfaction. Now they would understand. Now they would surrender. Instead, the humans launched everything they had. Missiles rose from silos across the planet. Not the primitive nuclear weapons Zarnvok had expected, but something else entirely. The humans had not been idle during the hours since first contact. They had adapted, modified, weaponized. Each missile carried a payload designed not to destroy the ship with brute force but to exploit a weakness the Crefter did not know they had. The Crefter had evolved on a death world, true, but it was a death world where the atmosphere was thicker, the magnetic field stronger, the radiation from their sun less intense. Their technology, perfected over millennia, was designed for the conditions they knew. Earth was different. Earth was meaner. Earth had forged humanity in a different kind of crucible. The missiles struck, and their payloads deployed. Not nuclear fire, but electromagnetic pulses tuned to frequencies that humans had discovered the hard way disrupted Crefter technology. For 3 seconds, the Crimson Fang's shields flickered. 3 seconds was all humanity needed. Fighter jets that had been holding position beyond sensor range dove toward the massive ship. They were not carrying missiles. They were carrying pilots who had volunteered, who had looked at the tactical situation and made a calculation that would haunt their species for generations. Captain Dan Carter had been flying fighters for 20 years. He had a wife and 2 kids waiting for him in Colorado. He thought about them as he pushed his aircraft into a dive that would end only one way. "Viper Squadron, we are angels of death," he said into his radio, using the call sign humans had given to those who chose this mission. Time to deliver the message. 12 aircraft struck the Crimson Fang in those 3 seconds of vulnerability, not with missiles or bullets but with themselves. Each pilot aimed for a critical system identified by analysts who had worked around the clock studying every sensor reading they could gather. Engines, weapon ports, shield generators. Aboard the Crimson Fang, Zarnvok felt his ship shudder. Alarms screamed across the bridge. The humans had not struck with overwhelming force. They had struck with precision, exploiting weaknesses, targeting vulnerabilities, attacking like prey that had suddenly revealed itself to be a predator in disguise. "Damage report," he roared. Krath's voice was strained. "Multiple hull breaches. Engine 3 is offline. Forward shields at 30%. Commander, they knew exactly where to hit us. This was not random. This was surgical. For the first time in 3,000 cycles, Zarnvok felt something his species had nearly forgotten. Not fear, not exactly, but uncertainty. The recognition that perhaps for the first time since the Krefter had reached for the stars, they had encountered something they did not fully understand. Fall back to high orbit, he ordered. We need to reassess. The Crimson Fang rose through the atmosphere, trailing debris and venting atmosphere from the breaches. On the ground, in command centers across the planet, humans watched it retreat and allowed themselves one moment of hope. They had bloodied the apex predator. They had proven they could hurt it, but they had not won, not yet. General Bennett stood in the command center looking at the tactical display that showed the alien ship withdrawing. Around her, people were celebrating, but she knew better. This was round one. The Krefter would adapt. They would return. And next time they would be ready for humanity's tricks. Lieutenant Morrison, she said quietly, get me every scientist, every engineer, every strategist we have. We have maybe 6 hours before they come back, and we need to be ready with something they have never seen before. Greg nodded, but before he could respond, the main screen flickered to life again. Zarnvok's face appeared, and this time there was something different in those 4 eyes, not fear but respect. The kind of respect one predator gave another. Humans, the Krefter commander said, and his voice carried a new tone. You are not what we expected. You fought well. You drew blood. No species has accomplished this in 47 conquests. You have earned the right to know what happens next. He paused, and his mandibles clicked in what might have been either a threat or a laugh. The Crimson Fang is but one ship. We have armadas. We have weapons you cannot imagine. We have conquered worlds far more advanced than yours. You hurt us today because we underestimated you. We will not make that mistake again. But I tell you this, humans, you are worthy prey. When we return, it will be with the full might of the Krefter Empire. And when we are done, your species will serve us with the knowledge that you faced the apex predators of the galaxy and fell, as all others have fallen. The transmission ended. Bennett looked at the blank screen for a long moment, then turned to address the command center. When she spoke, her voice carried to every person in the room. He thinks we're prey, she said. He thinks we're just another species to be conquered. He doesn't understand what we are. Humanity did not become the dominant species on Earth by being the biggest or the strongest. We did it by being the most stubborn, the most adaptable, and the most absolutely unwilling to give up. We learned to survive on a planet that tried to kill us every single day in 1,000 different ways. We learned to thrive in deserts and frozen tundras, on mountains and in jungles. We learned to turn every disadvantage into an advantage. And most importantly, we learned that when something bigger and meaner comes along, you do not run. You find its weakness and you exploit it until it stops moving. She gestured at the screens showing the damaged alien ship in high orbit. They think they're apex predators. They think they're at the top of the food chain. They're about to learn that Earth grew a different kind of apex predator. The kind that hunts in packs, uses tools, and never, ever stops until the threat is eliminated. Morrison, get me those scientists. Hayes, coordinate with every military force on the planet. Everyone else, we have 6 hours to turn this planet into the most dangerous trap the Krefter have ever encountered. They want to see what fear looks like. Let's show them. Aboard the Crimson Fang, Zarnvok oversaw repairs while his tactical officers analyzed the human attack. What they found disturbed him more than he wanted to admit. Commander, Krath reported, his voice uneasy. The human attack was not random. They identified our shield generators, our engine systems, our weapon ports, all of this in less than one rotation of their planet. They adapted to us faster than any species we have encountered. They are primitive, Zarnvok growled. They do not have our technology, our experience, our evolutionary advantages. No, Commander, another officer interjected. They do not, but they have something else. Their databanks show a history of constant warfare. Not conquest, but survival. They have been fighting each other for their entire recorded history. They have developed tactics and strategies not for domination, but for survival against equally dangerous predators. Each other. Zarnvok considered this. The Krefter had dominated their world so completely that competition had effectively ceased millions of years ago. They had evolved to be perfect predators, but they had no practice at being prey. These humans, on the other hand, had spent their entire existence learning to survive against other humans. "Send for reinforcements," he finally said. "2 more warships. We will overwhelm them with numbers. They cannot adapt to what they cannot counter." "Commander," Krath said carefully, "requesting reinforcements will require us to report that we encountered resistance, that we took damage. In 47 conquests, this has never been necessary." "Then let this be conquest number 48, Zarnvok said coldly. "The one where the Krefter learned that even apex predators can be challenged. Send the request." 6 hours passed in a blur of activity. On Earth, every nation had set aside differences and worked together with a single-minded focus. Scientists collaborated with military strategists. Engineers modified weapons systems. Intelligence analysts pored over every scrap of data gathered from the brief battle, looking for more weaknesses to exploit. Dr. Sarah Mitchell stood in front of a white board covered in equations and diagrams, explaining her findings to a room full of military officers and fellow scientists. She was a physicist who specialized in exotic materials, and right now, she was the most important person on the planet. "Their shields operate on a frequency we can disrupt, but only briefly," she said, pointing to a graph. "The good news is that their backup systems take approximately 3.2 seconds to come online. The bad news is that their shields adapt. The same trick will not work twice. So we need 3.2 seconds and a different attack each time," Bennett said. "Can we do that?" Dr. Mitchell smiled grimly. "General, humanity has spent 10,000 years developing different ways to kill each other. I think we can manage a few variations." That was when the sensors picked up new contacts emerging from faster-than-light travel. 2 more Krefter warships, each as massive as the Crimson Fang, taking position in high orbit alongside their damaged companion. The command center fell silent. 3 warships. The odds had just tripled against them. Greg Morrison broke the silence. "Well, at least they take us seriously now." Bennett allowed herself a brief smile. "Lieutenant, you have a gift for understatement. All right, people. 3 ships means we need to divide their attention. We need to make them commit to multiple fronts simultaneously. Dr. Mitchell, how many different disruption frequencies can we generate?" "With current resources, maybe 5 or 6. Then we will hit them 6 times, 6 different ways from 6 different directions. We will make them chase ghosts while we deliver the real punch." "Morrison, coordinate with the other command centers. We need a global effort on this." On the bridge of the Crimson Fang, now flanked by the warships Steel Talon and Void Hunter, Zarnvok addressed his fellow commanders via holographic link. Commander Rask of the Steel Talon and Commander Thull of the Void Hunter were both experienced officers who had participated in multiple conquests. "The humans are surprisingly resourceful," Zarnvok explained. "They exploited a vulnerability in our shield systems. This will not happen again. Our shields are now rotating frequencies randomly. Any attempt to disrupt them will fail." Rask, a scarred veteran with half his face replaced by cybernetics from an old battle injury, growled his response. "You called for reinforcements because of primitives who barely understand nuclear fusion. Are the R becoming soft?" "Krefter are adapting," Zarnvok replied coldly. "As we always have. These humans are not like other species. They learn quickly, they adapt quickly, they fight with a desperation we have not encountered before." "Then let us show them what 3 warships can accomplish," Thull said. She was younger than the other 2 commanders, eager to prove herself. "We will each target a different continent. Simultaneous strikes. Total destruction. When we are done, the survivors will have no choice but to surrender." Zarnvok wanted to caution patience, wanted to suggest they learn more about these humans before committing to total war, but pride would not let him. The other commanders already thought him weak for requesting help. He would not give them more ammunition. "Agreed," he said. "We strike in 1 hour. Let the humans see what happens when they defy the Krefter Empire." The 3 warships descended through the atmosphere, each targeting a different major population center. Crimson Fang over Beijing. Steel Talon over London, Void Hunter over New York. Their main cannons powered up, drawing massive amounts of energy from their fusion cores. In command centers across the planet, humans watched and waited. This was the moment everything depended on. Dr. Mitchell's teams had deployed their modified systems. Fighter wings stood ready. Ground forces had taken position. Everyone knew this could be humanity's last stand. The Crefter fired. 3 beams of concentrated energy lanced down from the sky, each one capable of leveling a city. But they never reached the ground. Somehow, impossibly, the humans had deployed shields. Not advanced alien technology, but something cobbled together from their primitive understanding of physics and a desperate need to survive. The shields held for exactly 2.7 seconds before collapsing. 2.7 seconds was enough. The beams dissipated, their energy absorbed and redirected into the ground, where hastily constructed heat sinks turned solid rock into molten slag but spared the cities above. Impossible, Thul gasped on the command channel. They do not have shield technology. Our intelligence confirmed this. They did not 6 hours ago, Zarnvok said quietly. They do now. That was when the humans struck back, and it was nothing like the first attack. This time, they came from every direction at once. Fighter aircraft screamed through the sky, but they were not carrying pilots. They were drones, expendable and numerous. The Crefter shot them down by the dozens, but for every one destroyed, 2 more appeared. While the warships were distracted by the drones, the real attack came from below. Missiles rose from the ocean, launched from submarines that had been positioned hours ago. These missiles were different from the first wave. Each one carried a shaped charge designed to punch through armor, tipped with depleted uranium cores that humans had learned made excellent armor-piercing projectiles. The missiles struck home. Not all of them made it through the point defense systems, but enough did. The Void Hunter shuddered as a missile penetrated its lower hull, the shaped charge detonating inside the ship and venting atmosphere. The Steel Talon took 3 hits to its starboard side, and alarms began wailing across its bridge. But humanity was not done. While the Crefter were dealing with the immediate threats, something else was happening in orbit. Small satellites that had been launched years ago for communications and weather monitoring suddenly activated hidden payloads. They were not weapons, not exactly. They were mirrors, thousands of them, each one positioned with precise calculations to focus sunlight. The combined light of 1,000 orbital mirrors struck the Crimson Fang's bridge viewport with the concentrated power of a solar furnace. The transparent material, designed to withstand the vacuum of space and weapons fire, was not designed to withstand the focused energy of a star. It cracked, then shattered, explosive decompression ripping through the bridge. Zarnvok felt the hull breach in his bones. Emergency systems activated, sealing the bridge off from the rest of the ship, but the damage was done. Half his crew was dead or injured, his ship was crippled, and the humans were still coming. All ships fall back, he commanded, and for the first time in his long military career he heard his own voice shake. Retreat to high orbit, now. The 3 Crefter warships limped back into space, trailing debris and leaking atmosphere. On the ground, humans watched them go and erupted in celebration. They had done it. Against impossible odds, against technology centuries ahead of their own, they had driven off the invaders. But General Bennett did not celebrate. She looked at the tactical displays and saw what others did not. The alien ships were damaged, yes, but they were not destroyed. They would repair, they would adapt, and they would come back. Morrison, she said quietly. How long do we have? Greg pulled up the analysis. Based on the damage we inflicted, maybe 12 hours before their combat effective again. General, they know all our tricks now. The shields, the drones, the orbital mirrors. Everything we threw at them, they have data on. When they come back, they will be ready for all of it. Then we need to come up with something they have never seen before, Bennett replied. Get every innovator, every out-of-the-box thinker we have. We have 12 hours to invent a whole new way to fight. In orbit, Zarnvok surveyed the damage to his ship and tried to understand what had happened. 47 conquests. 47 victories. And now, twice in one planetary rotation, a primitive species had bloodied the Crefter Empire. Commander, Krath said carefully, perhaps we should reconsider our approach. The humans have proven resourceful beyond any species we have encountered. Perhaps negotiation instead of conquest might be wise. Zarnvok wanted to agree. Every tactical bone in his body screamed that they were approaching this wrong. that these humans were not prey but something else entirely. But pride was a powerful thing, and the Crefter had never backed down from a challenge. "No," he said finally, "we will not negotiate with primitives. We will adapt, we will learn, and we will show them why the Crefter rule 47 systems. Gather the commanders, we need a new strategy." The three commanders met in a virtual space, their holographic forms gathering around a tactical display showing Earth rotating slowly below them. The planet looked peaceful from orbit, blue and green and white, with no sign of the desperate struggle happening on its surface. "We underestimated them," Rask admitted grudgingly. "They fight like nothing we have encountered, not with superior technology or overwhelming force, but with adaptation and desperation. Every time we attack, they respond with something new." "Then we stop giving them time to adapt," Thal suggested. "We hit them continuously. A sustained bombardment from high orbit where their weapons cannot reach us. We turn their planet into ash before they can develop a counter." "That would take weeks," Zarnvok objected, "and it would destroy the very resources we came to claim. There is no value in ruling a dead world." "Then what do you suggest?" Rask demanded. "We cannot keep trading blows with these primitives. They are making us look weak. The Empire is watching. Every species we have conquered is watching. If we fail here, if we withdraw, it will embolden resistance everywhere." Zarnvok knew Rask was right. This was about more than one planet now. This was about the reputation of the Crefter Empire, about maintaining the fear that kept 47 systems in line. They could not afford to be seen as vulnerable. But as he looked at the planet below, at the blue world that had produced these impossible humans, he felt something he had never experienced before in all his years of service. Not quite fear, but its close cousin, respect for a worthy adversary, and the unsettling knowledge that perhaps for the first time in 3,000 cycles, the Crefter had encountered something they could not simply overpower. "I suggest," he said slowly, "that we remember why the Crefter survived when other species on our homeworld did not. We adapted, we evolved, we learned. These humans have taught us something valuable. They have taught us that there are different kinds of strength, different kinds of predators. Perhaps it is time we learned from them instead of simply trying to destroy them." The other commanders stared at him in disbelief. "You suggest we negotiate?" Thal asked incredulously. "After they have damaged 3 warships, after they have made us retreat twice, the Empire will see us as weak." "The Empire will see us as pragmatic," Zarnvok countered. "Look at the data. Look at what these humans have accomplished with primitive technology and sheer determination. Now imagine what they could accomplish with our technology, with our resources, as allies instead of subjects." "The Crefter do not make allies," Rask growled. "We conquer, it is our nature." "Then perhaps," Zarnvok said quietly, "it is time our nature evolved, because I have looked into the eyes of these humans through their transmissions, and I have seen something that terrifies me more than any weapon they possess. I have seen that they will never stop, never surrender. They will fight until every last one of them is dead, and they will take as many of us with them as they can. We can win this fight, yes, but at what cost? How many ships, how many warriors, and for what? A planet of resources we could simply trade for." The virtual conference fell silent. Somewhere below, on that blue and green world, humans were preparing for the next battle, creating new weapons, developing new strategies, refusing to accept defeat. They were doing exactly what the Crefter had done millions of years ago on their own world. They were fighting to survive against a superior predator, and history had shown that sometimes the prey won. "Contact the human leadership," Zarnvok ordered. "Arrange a meeting, face to face. If they agree to talk, we will listen. And if not, we will at least have tried diplomacy before we are forced to do something we may all regret." The transmission came 3 hours later. Not a threat or a demonstration of power, but a simple request. The Crefter wished to negotiate. A neutral location, no weapons, just commanders and generals sitting down to talk. General Bennett read the message 3 times, looking for the trap. Greg Morrison stood beside her, equally suspicious. "It could be a trap," he said. "It probably is," Bennett agreed. "But we have to try. If there's even a chance we can end this without more bloodshed, we have to take it. Because, Lieutenant, I will be honest with you. We got lucky, twice, but luck runs out. If they come at us again with everything they have, I'm not sure we can stop them. So we meet with them. We meet with them, but we go in prepared, full security detail, every precaution. And we make damn sure they understand that if this is a trap, we will make them regret it in ways they cannot imagine. The meeting took place in a hangar in Nevada, at the same military installation the Krefter had destroyed in their first demonstration of power. The symbolism was not lost on either side. Humanity rebuilds. Humanity does not forget. Commander Zarnvak stepped off the transport shuttle, flanked by two of his warriors. He wore no weapons, as agreed, but his natural armor and claws made him a weapon himself. He was massive, 3 meters of evolved predator, and he moved with the fluid grace of something that had never had to fear anything. Until now, General Bennett stood waiting, flanked by her own security detail. She was tiny compared to the alien commander, barely reaching his midsection, but she stood straight and met his four-eyed gaze without flinching. "Commander Zarnvak," she said, "you wanted to talk. We're listening." The Krefter commander studied her for a long moment. Then his mandibles clicked in what she had learned was their version of a respectful acknowledgement. "General Bennett, I have conquered 47 worlds. I have faced warriors from a dozen species. I have fought in battles that would break lesser beings. But in all my years of service to the Empire, I have never encountered anything quite like humanity." He paused, and when he continued, there was something in his voice that might have been admiration. "You should have surrendered. Every tactical analysis said you would. You had no chance of victory, no hope of survival, but you fought anyway. You adapted, you innovated, you hurt us in ways no primitive species should have been capable of. And most importantly, you showed no fear, only determination." "Is there a point to this?" Bennett asked. "The point, General, is that the Krefter Empire has been built on a simple principle. We are the apex predators of the galaxy, the top of the food chain. But we have been apex predators for so long that we forgot something important. We forgot that being at the top means there is nowhere left to go, no challenges left to overcome, no evolution left to drive us forward." He looked around the hangar, at the humans standing guard, at the technology they had cobbled together from primitive materials and desperate innovation. "You have reminded us what it means to struggle, what it means to face something that should be able to crush you and fight anyway. And in doing so, you have taught us a lesson we needed to learn. You have shown us what true fear looks like. Not the fear of death, but the fear that comes from facing an enemy who will never stop, never surrender, never accept defeat no matter how impossible the odds." Bennett felt her jaw tight. "So what are you saying? You're going to leave us alone because we scared you?" "No," Zarnvak said. "I am saying that the Krefter Empire is offering humanity a choice. We can continue this war until one of us is destroyed. We have the ships and technology to win eventually, but it will cost us dearly. You have proven that. Or we can do something the Krefter have never done before. We can offer you an alliance, not as subjects but as equals, partners. Because I look at what you have accomplished in the span of a single planetary rotation with primitive technology, and I imagine what you could accomplish with access to the knowledge of 47 civilizations, and I see an opportunity for both our species." The hangar fell silent. Bennett looked at the alien commander, searching for deception, for hidden motives. But what she saw in those 4 eyes was something she had not expected: respect. And perhaps, just perhaps, the recognition that the Krefter had finally encountered something they could not simply overpower. "An alliance," she said slowly. "Based on what? Mutual fear. Based on mutual respect," Zarnvak corrected. "And mutual benefit. You need technology and resources. We need what you have in abundance. Innovation, adaptability, the kind of thinking that comes from spending millennia learning to survive against other members of your own species. The Krefter have been unchallenged for so long that we have stagnated. You could change that. And in return, we can help you reach the stars not as primitives struggling with chemical rockets, but as a true spacefaring civilization." Bennett considered this. It was not the outcome she had expected when she walked into this hangar. She had expected threats, demands, ultimatums, not an offer of partnership from an empire that had conquered 47 worlds. "I will need to consult with the other world leaders," she said finally. "This is not a decision I can make alone." I understand, take your time. We will remain in orbit and await your answer. But know this, General Bennett, the Crefter do not make this offer lightly. This is the first time in 3,000 cycles that we have offered any species anything other than conquest. We do so because you have earned it, because you showed us that even apex predators can learn, can evolve, can recognize when they have encountered something extraordinary. Zarnvok turned to leave, then paused. One more thing, General. Your species has a saying, I believe. Something about not being able to beat them, so you join them. Perhaps it is time the Crefter learned that sometimes the wisest course is to stop fighting and start working together. Because in you, we have finally found something we were searching for without knowing it. A challenge worthy of our respect. And perhaps if this alliance works as I hope, a partner worthy of standing beside us as we explore the galaxy. The Crefter commander and his escort boarded their shuttle and departed. Bennett stood in the hangar long after they were gone, processing what had just happened. Greg Morrison approached carefully. General, what do you think? I think, Bennett said slowly, that we just taught the most dangerous predators in the galaxy something they had forgotten. We taught them what it means to be afraid. Not of death, but of an enemy who will never stop coming, who will adapt and overcome no matter what. And in doing so, we may have turned the biggest threat we have ever faced into an ally. Do you trust them? Not even a little bit, Bennett admitted. But I trust that they respect us now. They came here expecting easy prey and found predators instead. That changes the equation. It makes us valuable instead of vulnerable. She looked up at the sky, where somewhere in orbit, 3 damaged warships waited for humanity's answer. Besides, she continued, if we say no, we fight until one side is destroyed. If we say yes, we get access to technology and knowledge that will take us centuries to develop on our own. We get to explore the galaxy not as victims or conquerors, but as partners. It is not the outcome I expected, but it might be the best one we could hope for. So we accept. We accept, Bennett confirmed. But on our terms. We are not joining their empire as subjects. We are entering as equals. And if they try to change that arrangement, we will remind them exactly why they decided to offer peace in the first place. 6 months later, the first human delegates arrived aboard Crefter ships to visit the imperial capital. They were greeted not as conquered peoples or primitives, but as representatives of the 48th member of the Crefter Empire. The first to join through alliance rather than conquest. The first to prove that even apex predators could learn something new. And throughout the Empire, on 47 worlds that had surrendered without a fight, stories began to spread about the species that had fought back. The species that had taken on the most dangerous predators in the galaxy and made them blink first. The species that had taught the Crefter what fear truly meant. Humanity had joined the galactic community not as victims, but as the species that had reminded everyone else of a fundamental truth. Being an apex predator is not about being the biggest or the strongest or having the best technology. It is about being willing to do whatever it takes to survive. It is about adapting faster than your enemy can compensate. It is about looking at impossible odds and fighting anyway. And most importantly, it is about teaching anyone who threatens you that sometimes the prey is more dangerous than the predator ever imagined. Commander Zarnvok stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed embassy station, watching Earth rotate slowly below. Beside him, General Bennett stood in her own environmental suit, adapted to allow humans to survive in the Crefter's preferred atmosphere. Do you ever regret it? She asked. Choosing negotiation over conquest. Zarnvok's mandibles clicked in amusement. Every day, he admitted. The other commanders still believe I showed weakness, that I failed to uphold Crefter honor, but then I look at what your species has accomplished in just 6 months with access to our technology, and I know I made the right choice. Oh, what have we accomplished that impressed the mighty Crefter? You improved our shield technology, Zarnvok said, modified our weapons systems, developed tactics we had never considered. And most disturbing of all, you have begun teaching other species in the Empire to question, to innovate, to think beyond the rigid structures we had imposed for 3,000 cycles. Bennett smiled. You say disturbing, I say progress. Perhaps they are the same thing, the Crefter commander conceded. Change is always disturbing to those comfortable with the status quo, but I have learned something from your species, General. I have learned that the greatest threat to an apex predator is not a stronger predator. It is stagnation, the belief that because you are at the top, you no longer need to evolve. You reminded us that evolution never stops. That adaptation is not a one-time achievement but a continuous process. So we taught the apex predators to be afraid, Bennett said. Is that what history will remember? No, Zarnvok replied. History will remember that humanity taught the Crefter something far more valuable than fear. You taught us humility. You taught us that there is always something new to learn, always room to grow, always a chance to be better than we were yesterday. And in doing so, you may have saved us from ourselves. He turned to face her fully, all four eyes meeting her gaze. The Empire believed we were the ultimate predators because we had conquered 47 worlds. But true strength is not measured in conquests. It is measured in the wisdom to know when to fight and when to negotiate, when to destroy and when to build. You taught us that, General Bennett, and for that the Crefter will be forever in your debt. Bennett looked out at the stars, at the vast expanse of space that humanity was only beginning to explore. Out there, among those distant lights, were 47 civilizations that had surrendered without a fight. 47 worlds that had accepted conquest as inevitable, but Earth had fought, Earth had refused, and in doing so, Earth had changed the galaxy in ways that would ripple through history for generations to come. The apex predators met humanity, she said quietly, and discovered that being at the top of the food chain means nothing if you stop evolving. We did not defeat you with superior technology or overwhelming force. We defeated you with something far simpler. We refused to accept defeat. We adapted faster than you could compensate. And we showed you that sometimes, the most dangerous predator is the one that has spent its entire existence learning to survive against itself. Zarnvok's mandibles clicked in what might have been agreement or amusement. True fear, he said, is not the fear of death. It is the fear that comes from realizing you have encountered something you cannot simply overpower. Something that will learn from every mistake, adapt to every tactic, and never stop coming no matter how many times you knock it down. That is what humanity taught us. That is what made us choose alliance over conquest. And that, Bennett replied with a small smile, is why we will make better partners than we ever would have made subjects. Far below, on the blue and green world that had produced a species capable of teaching apex predators to fear, humanity continued to grow and learn and adapt. They had met the most dangerous predators in the galaxy and emerged not as conquered victims, but as respected allies. And throughout the galaxy, on every world that had surrendered without a fight, a new story began to spread. The story of the species that had looked at impossible odds and fought anyway. The species that had reminded everyone else that true strength comes not from being the biggest or the strongest, but from being the most unwilling to give up. The apex predators had met humanity and discovered true fear, but more importantly, they had discovered something else. They had discovered that being an apex predator was not about domination. It was about evolution. It was about adaptation. It was about recognizing when you had encountered something that could make you better, and having the wisdom to embrace that opportunity rather than destroy it. And in that recognition, in that choice to build rather than destroy, the Crefter Empire and humanity together began to write a new chapter in galactic history. One where strength was measured not in conquests, but in partnerships, not in domination, but in mutual growth. The age of conquest was over. The age of cooperation had begun. And it had all started with a simple truth that humanity had taught the galaxy. Sometimes, the prey is more dangerous than the predator. And sometimes, the wisest thing an apex predator can do is recognize that truth before it is too late.